If we're focused on our own weakness and insecurity, we do things to take care of ourselves. That's what it means to play the victim. When we focus on others' vulnerabilities and what they need from us to feel secure, we can approach power from a position of strength and act like the leaders we all want to be.
Happy Friday. I'm Michael Kovnat, and this is the Next Big Idea Daily, quick life lessons from the best nonfiction. Today, let's talk about power. What is it? Who has it? And how can you use it responsibly? Today, we're hearing from Deborah Grunfeld, a Stanford psychologist who says we all have more power than we think, whether we're running meetings or raising kids. In her 2020 book, Acting with Power, Deborah explains how to embrace the roles life hands us, act with purpose, and wield influence not with bravado, but with intention and grace. Here's Deborah.
Hi, everyone. This is Deb Grunfeld. I'm going to share 5 insights from Acting with Power that I hope will help you handle your own power better. Insight number 1 is everyone feels powerless sometimes, but we often have more power than we think. About a decade ago, I found my first self-portrait in the back of a drawer at my mom's house. It was this little chicken scratch stick figure, and a copy appears in the book. To anyone who knows me, the resemblance will not be obvious. But when I found that little drawing, I knew right away it was me. Person had too many eyes for one thing, no real arms or hands, and a closed mouth, a gigantic head on an unstable frame. It was a person who sees everything, but feels powerless to act on what she knows. A lot has changed for me since I drew that picture when I was 3, but that little person is definitely still with me. Today, I study power for a living. You could say I'm an expert on power, but the problem for me on a day like today is that I wake up feeling like that little stick figure, and I have to show up like an expert on power. It's hard to know where to start. There was a time when I thought it was just me who felt this way, but I've learned that everyone relates to this story. We all feel powerless sometimes in some ways, no matter how much power we have. And this discrepancy between our offstage and onstage selves is a widely shared source of discomfort. As an academic, I've written a lot about what having power might be like. And as a person, I've hoped against hope that becoming an expert and attaining stature in my field would help me feel more powerful and make it easier for me to be me. Yet having power to the extent that I do has not felt like I thought it would. Power attracts attention and greater scrutiny, higher expectations, more ways to fail, with more at stake. Having power has done little to relieve me of my childhood insecurities. It's just provided a bigger stage on which to act them out. Think about it. We all play roles in life that come with power, status, and authority. Maybe you're someone's boss, someone's parent, someone's teacher, or someone's coach. Or maybe you're sometimes just the expert in the room. Maybe you're an old-timer on the team that has just absorbed a newcomer. These roles might not affect how you see yourself or how powerful you feel on a day-to-day basis, but they define who you are to other people. That's how power works. It might not change who you think you are, but it changes everything else. When others depend on us for access to things they care about, we have power over them. And to use that power well, we have to own it. To use power responsibly, we have to get in touch with social reality and commit to playing along. It's not a matter of faking it till you make it or trying to be someone you're not. It's a matter of aligning your authentic self, the one that sometimes feels vulnerable and does whatever you do habitually because it makes you feel safe, with your responsible self, the one that's committed to other safety and security. To use power well, we have to align our thoughts, feelings, and actions with our responsibilities to other people. It's not enough to be yourself. You have to find a way to rise to the occasion. To use power well, you have to move off your own drama and commit to playing your part in someone else's story. We all want to do power right, but whenever a person in a position of power feels incompetent, undeserving, or insecure in some other way, they're prone to use the power they have to make themselves feel better. The CEO of a private equity firm told me recently how this problem shows up in his organization, where he says it's one of the biggest HR challenges in his firm. We bring in all these associates, he told me, and the best of them get promoted. They're superstars with the numbers, on a steep trajectory upward, and then they stumble. They can't handle being promoted above their peers. They want to pretend they're all still equal. Suddenly, they have to hold their friends accountable, and they want to pretend it's not their job. We've lost a lot of good performers this way, and the groups they manage start to unravel. They don't trust that anyone is in charge, and it brings out the worst in everyone. The idea that you might be acting or trying to play a role at work probably makes you uncomfortable. But in fact, the capacity for role-taking is a milestone of developmental maturity. In the course of healthy development, preschool children start working on controlling their selfish impulses. They learn to wait their turn, to share and follow the rules as preparation for school, where they have to behave like good students in order to be successful. Success for any of us requires awareness that our actions affect other people who experience things differently than we do. Getting in role requires empathy, perspective-taking, sensitivity to context, and others' expectations. It requires an ability to identify what others need from us and act accordingly. Among children, when these developmental milestones and the ability to play a role are delayed, they get in trouble. And in adolescence, an inability to engage in role-taking is associated with delinquency, trouble with the law, and all kinds of antisocial behavior. The same is true for adults, of course, and especially those in positions of power. Sometimes the consequences are much more dire than the example I just shared. Bullying, sexual misconduct, and even domestic violence are also associated with having power while feeling powerless. These abuses of power are the consequence of having a victim mentality, when in fact, the perpetrator is not the victim. When we allow our fears about ourselves to loom larger than anything else, we lose touch with reality. The key is to shift the focus of our attention off of ourselves and our own needs, and onto the needs of others in the context where we're acting. My approach to power is grounded in social science, but some of the most important insights come from my collaborations with professional actors and acting teachers. Professional actors are people who, like the rest of us, play roles for a living. They too have insecurities, identities, and personal drama, but they don't let those things stop them from being who they need to be in order to do their jobs. Actors use techniques for dealing with their self-conscious energy so that they can be fully committed to their roles. A good place to start is by simply taking charge of your attention. If we're focused on our own weakness and insecurity, we do things to take care of ourselves. That's what it means to play the victim. When we focus on others' vulnerabilities and what they need from us to feel secure, we can approach power from a position of strength and act like the leaders we all want to be. Having power doesn't make you a bad person, and sometimes wielding power is the most generous thing you can do. Those of us who value equality have a hard time embracing power, but in truth, groups need hierarchy in order to function. We all need to know that someone is in charge. Studies show that we secretly crave social hierarchy. Most groups of people form a hierarchy almost instantly, whether their task requires it or not. And this is especially true during turbulent times. A recent study of over 150,000 people from around the world showed that as economic conditions deteriorated, as unemployment grew and wages fell, the preference for strong, authoritative leaders increased. The presence of a functional social hierarchy is often a source of psychological security. So when the person in charge doesn't act like they're in charge, we feel anxious and let down. What this means is that to be an effective leader, or parent, or role model, we need to have ways to step it up. I know professors who lock the doors when class begins, leaving late students standing outside. And I know one who insists on answering a student's phone herself if it rings during her class. "Hi," she says cheerfully, with the caller on speaker, the intended recipient shrinking into his seat. Confused, inevitably the caller will ask, "Can I please speak to Ron?" Or, "Who is this?" "This is Professor Acker," she chirps, "and you called during my class. Ron's here, but he's busy right now. Would you like me to give him a message?" Needless to say, these kinds of things rarely need to happen more than once in a very blue moon. In short, even pulling rank can be generous or an expression of caring when done by the right person at the right time. When there's a power vacuum at the top, others will fight to fill it. Parents have a responsibility to keep their children from hurting one another. Professors have a responsibility to ensure that students can learn free from distractions. A manager has a responsibility to his team that a meeting doesn't waste people's time and has a good chance of yielding results. And as we're seeing now, Political leaders have a responsibility to protect their constituents by making controversial decisions during a public disaster. When you have power, you have to be willing to use it to protect those who depend on you, even at great risk to yourself. You can't always control how much power you have, but you can always choose to interpret your situation in a way that's empowering. No one has the right to tell your story for you. We've all walked into that room, haven't we? Feeling alone, inadequate, and on the defensive. But with an actor's mindset, we can reinterpret our circumstances and affect how the story unfolds. A few years ago, Oprah Winfrey was a guest on campus and was interviewed in our View from the Top speaker series. In front of a packed house in a 600-seat venue, a student stood up and asked her how she handles going into an important meeting where she knows she'll be the only woman or person of color there. Without skipping a beat, she replied that she does not go in alone. "I come as one," Winfrey said, "but I stand as 10,000, drawing inspiration from the Maya Angelou poem, Our Grandmothers, which is a tribute to the poet's ancestors and the battles they fought for her freedom." When Oprah walks into an all-white, all-male boardroom, she makes a choice about how to play her part. She takes a moment and calls up a spiritual army. She reports literally sometimes going into a closet to close her eyes and call them up. Oprah doesn't make her entrance as the only woman of color in the room. She enters the room with her people, as one of many women of color who've played big roles and bit parts elsewhere at other times in history. They're not really there in body, but they are with her in her heart and in her mind, and that is her truth. When facing a challenge that makes any of us feel powerless, a new role, a tough conversation, an unfamiliar situation, it helps to ask ourselves ahead of time, not how am I going to handle this alone, but who can I bring with me? One woman I know wrote the names of her supporters on a pack of Post-its that she kept in her pocket when she went into court. A male executive I know imagined gathering the fiercest members of his family who fell in step with him one at a time as he strode down the sidewalk into his trial by fire. I've tried it too, with great success. I once imagined facing a hostile attorney as Daenerys Targaryen, the mother of dragons from Game of Thrones, and got deposed while flanked by 3 fire-breathing reptiles. I know it sounds kooky, but this stuff is no joke. Imagination is a powerful thing. Konstantin Stanislavski, the famous acting teacher, called it using the magic if. He believed that by fully engaging the senses and imagining all the sights, sounds, and smells that might be part of a character's experience, an actor could disarm his or her natural defenses and open up to new ways of being. Harvard psychiatrist Bessel van der Kolk, a pioneer in work on post-traumatic stress disorder, recommends drama as therapy for patients whose defenses have overtaken their lives. When the need to protect ourselves evaporates, we become capable of more. We can turn ourselves over completely to a new, more empowering set of circumstances. This is how an actor brings a character to life, and it's an effective tool for acting with power when being yourself is not working.
Thank you, Deborah. Okay, listeners, you can get yourself a copy of Acting with Power using the link in the episode notes. If you got something out of today's show, please leave us a 5-star rating and a glowing review to help others find it. We really appreciate it. That does it for us this week. These episodes were written by me, Michael Kovnat, and edited by Caleb Bissinger. We'll see you Monday.